Monica, and welcome back to Tailor-Made Cards for You. Well, today I want to talk about layers. I know that I shared with you some layered tags, but a lot of us like to make layered cards. And I had a request to share some of my layered cards with you and kind of give you some ideas on how you can go about making your own. Now, the cards that I had shared with you were on Instagram were these, and I had just been playing with some of my pieces. I created these little poinsettias, and this is just something that I put together, just kind of playing around. And someone had messaged me asking me if I was going to do a video on layered cards. So I wanted to go ahead and get one out for you just to show you some techniques for layering, as well as some ideas if you don't have lots of ephemera. So that's what I want to kind of go over first. This is my ephemera box, and I even have it labeled ephemera, if you can see that. This is a box that I decorated up, one of my favorite boxes, and this is where I keep my Christmas ephemera, and I have a lot of it. So whenever I get bits and pieces and bobs, I just kind of shove it in here, and then when I get ready to layer, I dig through it. Now, I have a problem. And I'll admit that I have a problem because I love ephemera. I collect vintage ephemera. These are some old Christmas seals from 1964. I make ephemera. Here is a sticker that I created from an old pharmacy label. And I also create digital ephemera. I love my paper dolls, so I decided to start creating some of my own little paper dolls. But if you don't have all of that, I want to show you how you can create your own without printing, without buying, just by fussy cutting. Now, if you don't like fussy cutting, that could be a problem. But I want to show you some of the tricks that I use for my fussy cuts. So here's what I wanted to show you. There are a lot of scrapbook papers out there that have beautiful images, and you can easily fussy cut some of these images out to create little ephemera pieces, and then you can layer these on your cards. Now, I know this is going to take a little bit of work, but this is a great way to save money and not have to buy ephemera pieces. Now, the paper dolls that I use, and we all love, right? I still use those, and I have a bag full of those as well. But these are about the same size as the paper dolls, and I got it right off of this scrapbook paper. But he's already colored in, so he's ready to go. So you could easily combine these if you wanted to. You can color this up, but it's just a way to add to your ephemera stash. So if you are, in your craft room and you just don't know if you're going to make anything, or you don't have an idea, just start cutting ephemera pieces. Get a little box, stick them in like I do, and then when you're ready to create, you'll have all these little wonderful pieces to create with. Now, this little label here, I don't know if you remember, but it was from one of the new Halloween stamp sets from Tim Holtz. Let me see if I can grab that for you. And it's this one here. And I purchased it because I love all these little labels, but I didn't have a chance to create it during Halloween. And that is one of my frustrations, is Halloween is such a short period of time, sometimes we don't get to use our stamps. But we're going to incorporate some of these little labels into our Christmas crafting. As far as I'm concerned, anything red goes. So I don't care if it's a Halloween pharmacy label. If it's red, it can go on a Christmas card as far as I'm concerned. So if you have some really pretty scrapbook paper and you're cutting it up, but you have spaces that you can stamp in, stamp some of your little images and cut them out and add them to your ephemera pile. It's a great way to collect additional pieces without extra cost. Now, a couple of other ideas, like I said, as far as it's red, it's at Christmas. I have authentic vintage ephemera that I like to use. These are old boarding coupons. And I have a lot of this vintage ephemera in my shop. So if you like to use vintage ephemera, you can check out my shop because I have some really great ephemera pieces that will work well for Christmas. I also have these little coupon books that would go a long way as well for your Christmas crafting. So check that out as well. And then finally, when you go to your scrapbooking stash, you can use old bingo cards. You can use old game pieces. You know, red and green is great for Christmas. So go through some of your old games, and if you're not using them anymore, those would make good Christmas ephemera as well. And then finally, of course, we've got these die cuts, and these are from who are these from? These are from, oh gosh, I just got them in the mail from scrapbook.com. Oh, Pink Fresh Studios. It was a freebie with my purchase. So these are great as well. So if you have any of these Christmas label cards, you know, these are great for backgrounds as well. So we're going to be incorporating all of this. So if you are in the mood for layered cards, stick around because we're going to create a few here. All right, so the first thing that I did is I went to my paper stash and I grabbed coordinating paper. So, you know, this is kind of a maroon paper, but it coordinated with a lot of these other pieces of papers that I had. And then what I did is I went to my die cutting station and I started die cutting pieces. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I know I'm going to layer, and I wanted different shapes to be layered. So I just cut shapes using my die cut machine and my dies. And then I also just cut some rectangular pieces as well that I might have to trim down. So that would be the first thing I would do. And then also, if you remember this is one of the pieces that we fussy cut. If you have a die that you can incorporate, you can cut these as well. And these will be great for your layered cards as well. So let's go ahead and kind of get a little organized here. Like I said, I just kind of started cutting different shapes. I know I'm going to be doing layers here. And I wanted to be able to have coordinating paper. So let's just get organized and we can start putting some cards together. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and put together a very simple card for you. I just have this wonderful piece that was cut out. All of these are going to be A2 cards. And then I cut, using one of my decorative dies, I cut an insert here to create a frame. So right off the bat, you have coordinating paper and a frame. And then I also cut some die cuts, and these are the carolers, and these are great for Christmas cards. It's a very easy design. You've got a background here. You can even put music in the middle if you want to. So I have this music sheet. I wanted to add music in the background. I could do that so it's not as bold. If you want to leave it with this, you could do that as well. Or you can add something else. We have lots of little ephemera pieces that we can add. This is not planned out very well. I'm just kind of playing as I go along. So let's go ahead and just add these. And as I've said before, you'll know when it's finished. Sometimes I will create cards, put it aside, and come back to it later, just because I want to add more items. So let's add our frame first. It probably should have been the first thing that I glued down. And all this is a piece of cardstock cut with a frame out in the middle. And I'm sure you have lots of dies. I have lots of dies. I'm sure you have lots of them too. Pull them all out and just start cutting paper. And those can be used for your layered cards. So we're going to go ahead and just add this down here. I love this maroon background. I think it makes a great Christmas card. Add this one here. They overlap a little, no big deal. And then you can just finish it off with a very simple sentiment. Let's see if we can find a holiday sentiment. So this compliments of the season fits perfectly here. All I need to do is add a little bit of glue, and I have one down. Okay. Okay, so for the next two cards, as you can see, I'm using the same die cuts. So I had cut several out because I knew I wanted to use them on cards, but I'm just changing it up a bit. So this one had the frame. This one is going to use some of this music paper that I just cut into different shapes. So it has a really festive oval, and I will put a metal element here. And then this one, I took one of my die cuts and I cut these out, but I cut them onto the paper, so it'll be part of the background that it will see through. And I think this would be beautiful if you had some like silver glitter paper. That'd be really pretty, but I think it looks great with just the maroon because it has the music sheet. And then I'm just going to add these characters here. And then for my sentiment, I'll just use one of these stickers here that will kind of be bold and stand out a little bit. So I'm going to use the Let's Celebrate. Stick it right in between here so it stands out. And then I'll glue these on. And then just like that, I'll have 3 cards finished. Okay, then just like that, I glued everything down. I put my brads, I got my little sentiments. All I need to do is add them onto some white cardstock. And now I have 3 cards ready to go. Similar, but different. Now I know these were very easy to put together, so let's get a little bit more intricate. Let's go ahead and use some of our smaller pieces of ephemera to see if we can create a layered scene. Okay, so let's look at this next set of cards here. This background is really busy, so we want to make sure that for this layering we have something to tone it down, because if we start layering on top of this, your pieces are going to get lost. So whenever I have a really busy background, the first thing I want to do is I want to find something that's going to tone it down. Now you can cut this piece a little bit smaller, but I want to have a lot of layering room. So I just went ahead and I used one of my dies to make the edge a little bit more vintage or distressed. This particular one I just kind of left straight, but I'm going to go ahead and put it here. And I might actually even trim this down a bit more. So let's do that. And then we're going to start layering on top of this. But just think about that. Whenever you are pulling out colors, if it looks too busy, just find another layer that's a little bit less busy, you know, so that way your layers don't get lost. All right, so now we have some pieces that don't look as busy. Just want to make sure I have this the right way. All right. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to find a base. So for this particular one, again, I'm using another die cut, and that's going to just go right over it. I have another round piece, not exactly the same thing, but again, it's going to give it some contrast. So now we have 3 different types of paper that match in color, but are a little bit different. Now, I want to use a little character, but I don't want to just place him. So we're going to use some more die cuts here to add these presents. And I'm going to place them strategically to cover most of the bottom here. So that way when I place him and I'll pop him up, he'll go right here as my focal point. For this particular one, we're using the same image from that paper. This one I fussy cut out, but this one I cut onto off of a fancy die. And we're gonna go ahead and place this down after I get all my little pieces off. Just kind of get coordinating paper and start cutting out pieces. And then when you sit down to put your cards together, you'll have several options for your layering. So put that there and that there. And then I will just use some small pieces of ephemera to add some more interest. Offset that. And then I'll put some numbers, again, just to give it a little bit more interest. So that's basically how we're going to be putting this together. So now that we kind of have our layout, let's go ahead and glue this down and we can see what we come up with. Okay, so I went ahead and I glued everything down, and let's take a look at what we did here. So I did all of my layering. I ended up popping up this little guy. I added a couple of sentiments, and then I had some small pieces of ephemera. So again, similar items, but a different look. And then I happened to find this just laying on my desk. Numbers are always great for additional interest. So if you have room, take a look around your desk. See if there's anything that you can use. Rather than having it still clutter up your desk, or worse yet, you throw it away. See if you can add it to one of your designs to just add a little bit of interest. And again, it's not much, but it really does add to the design. And then finally, if you have some, white spaces, if you want to use some of your liquid pearls, anything just to add a little bit more color or a little bit more interest. Let's do this so I don't make a mess. Then you can certainly do that as well. Now typically I would add this to the base of my card, but we're going to go ahead and just put this aside to dry. So we'll add a couple there. We'll add a couple here. And then I think we'll just kind of call it a day. Maybe I'll add a couple here. Okay. Okay, so for the final two cards, we're going to go ahead and we're going to work with, again, another busy background. So we're going to want to tame it down a bit. But this time, I'm not going to use a blank slate, because some of this I want to keep and some of it I don't care if it gets covered. So I've got two pieces here that do tone it down because you have the beige background, but there is still writing on it. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to do some layers. Now for this particular one, this is FAO Schwarz. It's a toy company, and this little girl's holding a doll. So I'm going to work to use this little character here. And then I also have an old board-in coupon that looks like it's for a toy coupon. So I'm going to use this strategically to cover my Santa. Now, I know some of you might be freaking out, thinking, oh my God, you're covering a really nice image. But again, I like to layer, and I don't worry about what I'm covering. I worry about, or I think about what my end result is going to be. And my end result is going to be having an ad for a toy company and then a vintage coupon. So if I'm over the edge a little bit, I know this is going to be matted onto a white card base, so I'm not too concerned about the edge, but you don't want to go off the edge too much. but I want to try to get as much of my wording in as possible, although we may cover it. Now for this one, basically what I want to show is this Christmas 1876. So I'm okay with covering the top portion. And then I want to create some sort of a background for my Santa. So I'm just going to go ahead, kind of strategically work to give him a little background, as well as my holly branch. So it's going to be something like that. It's a very simple layout. We can always add a number. I like adding numbers for interest. You know that about me. So if we wanted to add a little bit more red for the background, we can certainly do that as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that yet, but that is a possibility. So we'll think about that. Then working again over here, I've got a red theme going on. I've got this little list and this little note that we're going to work into here. So maybe something like this. I'm not sure yet. We'll see what we can do. I want my list to show more than my notes. So that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out here. Maybe something like that. And then we can add our numbers on top. Again, in my opinion, if it's red, it works for Christmas. So I don't mind just pulling things to add more interest. Then I also have from another pieces of ephemera, I cut out this dolls. I'll probably put that there. And then I had another piece somewhere that says toys. Yeah. So I might put this down here. So again, it's just kind of playing with the layout, getting colors that are going to work together. And then once you find something that works, you just want to go ahead and glue it down. So let me go ahead and get these glued down, and then I'll be right back to share with you all of the cards that we put together. Okay, so this is what we ended up with. When I had it all glued down, I still was able to keep my Christmas 1876 showing, but as you can see, I just kind of strategically placed my ephemera pieces to give my Santa a background. And then on this particular one, I was going for more of the toy theme. I was able to save part of the doll on the little coupon here. I got my little list and my notes, and then I have toys, and I'm still showing my FAO shorts. So while I am covering some of the images, I think overall it still works, and I'm able to get the theme of my card. So as you can see, we went from very easy, which again is just a couple of die cuts and a background. We went a little bit more difficult with a few more layers. And then finally, the last piece, we really embellished. So your layers don't have to be always very detailed. You can get some beautiful cards by just coordinating some of your paper, coming up with some themes, you know, maybe toys, and getting ephemera pieces that work together. And then finally, just kind of picking a piece of your background to make it your focal point. This one being the Christmas 1876. And then I just complemented the background. Keep in mind your designer paper can be fussy cut. You can use it as background using some of your fancy dies. And then of course, your silhouette dies are great as well. So I hope I've given you some ideas for layering. I know that I do a lot of layering in my designs, and I get so many wonderful messages from everybody, but really it's just, and I know I've said this before, When it's finished, you're going to know it's finished. So just pull out your matching and your coordinating paper, pull out your ephemera pieces, and start just layering and see what works. I love this technique. It's one of my favorite techniques, and I know if you practice, you'll love it too. So as always, I'll leave a list of everything that I've used to create these, along with the list and the link to the store. If you've enjoyed my video, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now, some of the pieces that I'm going to be listing below specifically are these dies. So if you want the carolers, I do have sets of 10 in my shop available for you. I know that this die is discontinued, and a lot of people still love to make these cards with the carolers. So I try to put those in the shop every year. But pull out your stash, pull out your die cuts, start coordinating your cardstock so you can make some beautiful layered cards for Christmas. All right, everybody, thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you again next time.